Okay, hi everybody. Just a quick one. I'm Jonah. I'm the Hack Global Director for this year, and I'm happy and glad that you're here with us at this time and looking forward to how we could be able to come up with an ideation of how we could create solutions for people on the move. So I'm so glad each of you are here to share this time and Diane also as she facilitates this session. So let me introduce to you what Hack is all about. Let me share my screen. Hack is actually a short uh, is a short word for the word hackathon, which is an event where people gather from 24 to 48 hours to create solutions for problems. But for this case, Hack is the largest global hackathon to take the gospel to new people, new places, and spaces. So this year, we are praying to be able to have this in 80 cities, um, 80 cities, 30 countries, and also like gather 22,000 people all over the world to do this contextually in their different countries. So it is started in 2016, and we want to be able to see many people come online and in person and in a weekend event in a location that works for them. So who is coming in Hack? People who have a passion to take the gospel to new people, places, and spaces, and have a willingness to use their skills, experience, and abilities. And Hack happens because we want to be able to take the gospel to those who don't know Christ yet. And we do that by innovating and collaborating to help them discover Jesus. So this is a snapshot of the locations where we have been for the past years. And these are the different roles that are composing the Hack community globally. A coach, a champion, a participant, a mentor, a judge, and the global team that supports this. And for this year, we pray that we want to see what is said in Isaiah 43:19, which is, Behold, a new thing now which shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So, um, oh yeah, I stand corrected. 40 countries, 80 cities, 2,000 people all over the world. And one of the themes that we would like to engage everyone on is on a theme of Mark 16:15. Go into blank, your city, and preach the good news to blank. So this could be different types of people. And then people on the move. These are the different global challenges that we have for this year. People on the move, discipleship in a digital age, and least reached peoples. So we have this space where we get to talk about these challenges right now for people on the move. And for the succeeding weekends, succeeding weeks, we will be talking about the other two, which is discipleship in a digital age and least reached peoples. So as we take part in the process right now, we're grateful that as we come and ideate together, we will explore further solutions for these challenges. So thank you for coming and pray that this could ignite a lot of the different things that God has in store for this year.
Today we get an opportunity to hear from Ramon, who works with Outreach Canada. And so I will just ask him a few questions and then we'll get a chance to, I'm going to put us into a few breakout rooms. And then at the very end, we'll brainstorm. I will introduce a tool that we're using to collect ideas that will move into projects this year. So today's session is really focused on the problem space and not the solution space. So the 5 or 6 areas we'll really dig into is the basics, which is who, what, when, where, why. But first, we'll just get started. So I'll guide the questions. And please, as you're listening, think of more questions. Just like try to dig as deeply as you can, and as you're listening, try and come up with at least 3 questions that you can share with each other in your breakout rooms. Okay, so Ramon, would you mind introducing yourself and your organization?
I am Ramon Padilla, and I grew up bilingual in the US, speaking English and Spanish. And I remember interpreting for my parents at banks and stuff like that. So it's sort of an experience of people on the move, often who are children. The parents are monolingual. So that's sort of how I grew up. And really love sharing the word of God with people. And so it's been my passion for people who don't know God to come to know him through the scriptures. And so that's my role we call it scripture engagement, connecting people to God through the scriptures. And we came into Outreach Canada about 3-4 years ago after having 10 years of experience in Bible translation in people in southern Mexico. And Outreach Canada is very open innovation, and very open to diaspora work, working with people who are not in their homeland, but still have that connection to the homeland. So within Outreach Canada, we have that general diaspora ministry, which includes Loving Muslims Together network. There's the whole Simply Mobilizing and Kairos course is a part of that, and many other courses. There's a marketplace course, engaging intercultural churches, engaging with refugees. Also, we have a whole arm of marketplace ministry, chaplains in the marketplace, and we also do a network across Canada to care for missionaries, care for missionary kids, networking different organizations to collaborate on that. And within the Canadian church, we have people reaching out to university students and doing disciple making, trying to make disciples who make disciples. And really our goal is to disciple nations. Outreach Canada started in Taiwan and spread through Asia first before coming to the US and Canada. And we still have that sending missionaries as part of our goal, but really the idea of People on the Move is we want to work through people who are leaders among their own community. And in the disciple making movements arm, we're trying to get there in certain countries of Asia, but also across Canada. In my specific role now, we're focused especially on a project called Caring for Wounded Hearts. So after listening for 3 or 4 years to leaders who are reaching out to newcomers across Canada, one of the biggest pain points we were hearing is the trauma, the pain, the loss that newcomers had experienced. And it's usually people who've been forcibly displaced, refugees, but even university students might feel alone or so sometimes economic migrants don't experience that as much. But in our space, we are focusing on how can we come alongside leaders who I don't know how to listen to these stories. And there's a tool that has been developed for 20 years by SIL people and the Trauma Healing Institute. They call Bible-based trauma healing, but we are calling it Caring for Wounded Hearts, because all of us have some kind of wounds we can deal with first, then we can help others. So we want to come alongside people who are reaching out to the least reached peoples of the world, and especially the peoples you would imagine in the 1040 window, but especially if we could find believers and they reach out to their people. If we can't find believers, just make friendships, and it's been adapted for a Muslim audience, and people are willing to come to God for healing, and that's what it's about.
Can you give a concrete example of someone that you serve, like the demographic or, a persona? Or I know you
Yes.
mentioned multiple demographics, so maybe, we can start with one.
I'm a practitioner as well. So since I speak Spanish, it came together that we were able to come alongside some refugees from Mexico, from El Salvador, and a few other just friends of ours in our local ministry at our church and food bank. And so we did a healing group this last spring where we did the 8 core lessons, and they want to do the extra 8 as well. How to heal from heart wounds. So we looked through sort of like a Bible story half, and we have a listening circle and talk about it. And the other half is a modern story. So kind of like a historical fiction story that we could all relate to, and it's been adapted for them, for their culture. And then the extra stories include things like addiction and domestic abuse and other things. So we're going to get into that. The other sort of, that's sort of where I'm at as a practitioner. The other people we're trying to serve are people like Global Gates. Global Gates Canada is trying to reach out to the least reached peoples. And so they're making friendships from people from the Middle East, people from North Africa, and some people have, as previous international workers, have been displaced back here. And so they speak that language and they're able to really make deep relationships. So we want to come alongside them and help them get connected to this tool, because they've said to us that would be really relevant and helpful.
So,
And yeah,
so
does that
can you
give you an idea?
well, I meant more of a concrete example in terms of the demographics. So, for example, is there an age group? Is there a gender? I mean, I know it's probably pretty wide, but can you give us like a person
Yeah.
that you've, or describe a person that you've worked with?
Well, it'd be above 18 or above is what I'm trained for. So could be as old as needed. But the gentleman I met is in his 20s. He had arrived about a month before I met him, and it's now been about 18 months. And so he's settled enough that he can look at the difficult things he's gone through without being in the midst of it being like fresh right in front of him. So that is one example. And there's another, the other family in our group had fled their country because of threats of violence, and the wife had been here about 1.5 years, but the violence followed them here, and he was actually attacked here. I mean, we don't know for sure, but probably by the people who he was fleeing from. So you can flee, but it doesn't always. But God saved his life in a sense, and so she and her son are coming to the group, and even though he needs more acute help still, even though it's been a number of years since that incident. So that gives you so it's the son is maybe 20 in his 20s. There are other people who are specialized more in that 13 to 18 and then like 8 to 13 range, but I don't have that training yet. Hopefully other people across Canada might.
Okay. So
it could be women or men. Sorry, that's the other part you asked. So like we're doing a group that's mixed, but then we do sort of smaller groups where the men and the women talk together. Often when it's groups from the Middle East, you would need to really do the like women with only women or men with men.
Okay. So everyone who's listening, as you're listening, come up with more questions. And we're obviously only scratching the surface here, but yes, come up with more questions as we go along, and then we'll get a chance to ask Ramon later, hopefully. So you mentioned this course, you've mentioned like, you know, they've been there for 18 months, some sort of timeline. Can you describe what does before, during, and after serving them look like, or serving a person or a family?
Yeah, I think beforehand it takes a lot of relationship building. So that's gonna, even in my case, it took a year of really just being involved in the local food bank ministry, and there's people from all kinds of countries coming to our church food bank. We served like 600 families this last year. And so people need to have their boots on the ground in some way. And that's who we want to come alongside, right? As people who are building those relationships. And then when you suggest, hey, do you want to study God's word? Do you want to come to him for healing in some way? And then it can take some organizing to find, well, what time can we even meet as a small group? And so there's some challenges there sometimes. Some people just use it in home visits and they just can't form a group, but it's written to be a small group. So then during, like ideally it would be done as, but even before that, you could look at the refugee highway of how people have come to settled countries like Canada or US or Australia or Portugal or something, right? So that's my situation, and people might be stuck in a refugee camp for years and then maybe get a chance to go further. So there's a deeper history coming before that, or people might be able to flee here directly, ask for asylum, or they might have been given refugee status before coming. So and then in the group itself, ideally we'd meet for 3 hours, but sometimes it could be done in 2 halves, right? I talked about that modern story, and then the other half being a Bible story, and so how they relate together. And there's different exercises of how to listen well to each other, and what is a heart wound, and what does that look like to talk about emotions and how we're feeling, and things that might be pushed down. And so there's different. Each lesson has different exercises. So in person, it's nice to have a snack when you're doing a group or a meal. So that's what we did. It can be done online, and it could be reaching back into the homeland. And so we connected with a group of women from a least reached group that it's been in the news of war in their country, and some of these people are maybe the only believers in their family, and they can't really share because of who's around them, but they're connecting in and listening to the stories, listening to the others who can share, and there's a strong leader who's keeping that group together. Maybe they were together in person at some point in the homeland, and they've been scattered across the world. So that's one thing we're thinking about too, is long-term, how to keep discipleship going. So maybe there's 16 lessons and you can expand to maybe 25, but then how to keep going into a different tool, maybe Discovery Bible Study, and train them on that. Or maybe they want to become facilitators and multiply with others with the same tool after experiencing it themselves. And that's our dream, of course, is that people who speak the languages that from a least reached people group, that they would become facilitators, and then maybe they could become trainers of new facilitators later and be able to do the training in their own language, which is not happening quite yet. It's mostly just happening in English, the training, even though it's been translated into 200 languages or so.
In terms of, you mentioned a few different spaces, both online and offline. Can you describe a little bit more, give us a few examples of what the online spaces or tools look like, and what the offline spaces and tools look like?
We're working with an oral tool. So the idea is that the facilitators would know the modern story and the scripture story and the questions to ask and the exercises enough that they could just connect with the people that they're facilitating with. It could be done totally orally with people who don't read, and the facilitator doesn't have to read. And it's been done in a number of languages where the material has been recorded so that it could be sort of standardized, and then learned and used. There is a facilitator guide as a PDF, written document, and then written to be used orally. So, I mean, you can print it out and have your little packet, right, if you need to, but it's really not designed to be used that way. And online, people just use Zoom or some other platform like that to connect. And you want to be able to see people's faces. You want to have no more than 12 participants. You could have 4 facilitators, and then if you have 4 by 4, you can at least see people's faces, how they're doing, if they're able to open that. Maybe the internet's slow, maybe they're the only believer, they're not able to, but in terms of the tool, we want it to be simple and reproducible, and that it could be a little bit more maybe, but.
Okay, so I think in terms of the spaces or like the offline places, I think you've mentioned, is it churches, workplaces, like anywhere where people can meet, I guess, and would there be
Yeah.
certain sensitivities or like security issues?
There's certainly could be security issues, but I mean, it can be done at a church if people are happy and willing to go there. That's where we're doing our group. Other people have done it at a library where rooms are there to rent for meetings. And there's a group I know of. The woman who trained me is meeting with women from this country from the 1040 window, and she's been developing relationships at this friendship center. And so to invite them to a church didn't make as much sense. So that to be able to meet with 3 women plus an interpreter in a library and have this room rented for 2-3 hours each week at a certain time, they were able to figure out a time. It could be done in someone's home. It could be done under a tree. I mean, I'm sure it's being done in all kinds of spaces. across, especially it's been translated in a number of languages in Africa, which is where the material started after the Rwanda, the Hutu and Tutsi conflict. But some of those challenges, though, are like to find a time to meet. That if to actually do a small group, that's a big challenge for refugees who work multiple jobs.
What are some of the different pain points that you've observed or experienced?
Yeah. And if I back up and just think of our organization, Outreach Canada, we want to make disciples and do it across our different teams that are doing in different places. So even chaplains are working with people on the move, and we want to connect with them as well as people who are doing the student ministry. And so we want to be able to collaborate across these different teams and not be in silos. So we need better ways to do that. One thing we need too is a way to track progress through the discipleship journey or through the different places of our program. I went through yesterday and just wrote down all the different things we'd like to track: people interested in a taster, people who've experienced a taster and want to experience a healing group, people who've experienced a healing group want to get trained as a facilitator, what languages, to be able to categorize by diaspora communities and least reached. Are they majority Canadian from a legacy church? Are they from an intercultural church, diaspora church? Are they serving with a parachurch ministry? Are they in a marketplace? They're volunteering, but they're bivocational maybe. They're reaching out to Muslims. They're reaching out to refugees from other areas. So we want to be able to collaborate with volunteers from who maybe are not affiliated with any org. Maybe they're affiliated with a church, or maybe they're affiliated with a parachurch organization. So we need a simple, practical, relevant way to track fruit or new disciples, and we want to be able to track. We want a discipleship movement to happen. So we want multiple streams of disciples making disciples to 4+ generations, and be able to keep track in a secure way, and so that we can follow up and not have people fall through the cracks. People who did express interest and then we don't get back to them.
So one thing that I noticed is you mentioned people on the move, which is our focus today, but there's also digital discipleship, and there's also least reach people groups. So all of these are kind of melded together. So as we're getting the breakout rooms ready, one question before we open the breakout rooms, which is, what do you think would be distinctively pain points around people on the move, or opportunities that are distinctively in serving people on the move?
Yeah, I think the opportunity that we're seeing is people have that pain and want to know, like, where's God in the midst of this? And so that is where the scriptures could speak into that first. So if you don't deal with that, then why should I listen to the good news? Like, how is it even good news? So that's where we're speaking into. We think there's a huge opportunity. How to come alongside refugees who are super busy, who want it, but we can't pin them down in a sense. That's, I think, one of the people on the move, and the challenges of being in Toronto. It's high cost of living, and the resettlement process. So that's the challenge, and just needing the program is sometimes in a little bit of a box. Training has been 9 to 5 for new facilitators, or like 10 half days, 10 session online of half days. So it needs to be there's a lack of people to train others as well. So that needs to be addressed. But I think the people on the move piece is really the refugees who are hurting, but so busy, and yet those hurts sometimes block them from even getting a job.
The fact that people are on the move, they're away from their regular or former places and spaces that they're used to. They're now in an unfamiliar space, so there is an opportunity that is separate from digital discipleship to actually be in person. Like you mentioned. So I guess that sort of touches on the what is unique to people on the move.
Personally, I want to hear more about just the process, because it feels like there is a process of someone coming into country. How do they discover the group go? How do they what is the first step? Right? And also from the training end, what are some of the bottleneck in getting more people to be trained and use this? Right? It sounds like the curriculum has been developed, but it is the scaling up of this that needs to be a lot more thinking around.
Okay, Ramon, do you want to address that in a minute?
Yes. The bottleneck, especially in the Trauma Healing Institute training specifically, there's two, there's another one. The Trauma Healing Institute one is that there's a 35-hour training, 9 to 5. In some instances, they want people to experience a healing group first. In some instances, if you're a refugee, you're not ready to be trained as a facilitator, you really do need to experience that healing group first. But I think the bottleneck is I'm ready to be a trainer, but I need a mentor to help walk with me first, so that I'm not just doing it on my own. But there's not a mentor like available this fall. I need to wait till next year.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Yeah, please.
How is so you said this is similar to what SIL is offering, maybe like, so how is this similar or different?
Yeah, the Caring for Wounded Hearts is the name we're giving it. It is the program that came from SIL, the oral Bible-based trauma healing. The derivative of that is Multiplying Hope. That one is different in that it's designed to multiply faster. So the difference between the two is the SIL, the more traditional one, requires 2 facilitators usually, so that you go in pairs, and the Multiplying Hope, which learned from SIL and the Trauma Healing Institute, you basically learn in one session and you multiply it the next week. You learn it and practice it, just like you would with Discovery Bible Study.
I recognize we're really tight on time, and this merits much, much more time. So there are 2 things I will introduce. One is a tool that we're using to capture ideas to asynchronously brainstorm together. And then the second is Discord, which hopefully, can you emoji like a thumbs up or some kind of emoji if you're already on the Discord? So Discord is where we have a channel for each of the projects, or sorry, the topics, where you can post the questions that you have, and also comment on each other's questions, and this is just the start of the conversation. So that's where we'll capture questions and capture answers to those questions as well. And then the other thing I mentioned, I just dropped a link in the group chat. So let me show you what that looks like. So you should, let's see. So when you go to that link, you should see this page at the top. So this is where you'll see idea collections for the different topics. So for people on the move, for example, this is one framing of a question. How might we foster collaboration? But there are also like a tools question. So basically you would need to, I think, sign up. And then when you sign up, you would be able to post. I think like you can actually start posting, but it would require you to sign up before it will let you post. You can start answering, you can start adding ideas, but to publish it, you will sign up. So you can sign up with the link that's just in the group chat. And then after you've already signed up, then you'll enter a dashboard. Oops, that looks like this. And then yeah, you would be able to see the different things that other people are writing. You can, for example, in here, you can comment on different people's ideas. And then throughout the hackathon, we will, or throughout the hack month, different projects, as people work on them, will go into different phases, like building, and then at the end, we will have a People's Choice Award as well. So that will go into the voting process. And then finally, we can track next steps for ideas. So overall, we will be able to see how ideas kind of move throughout this hackathon.